The Ravens play a Monday Night Football matchup with the Detroit Lions without Nnamdi Madubuike, and it goes as well as you would expect.
The Ravens got bullied tonight, and wow, it was ugly.
The Ravens offensive line did Lamar Jackson no favors in this game. Lots of pressures, lots of sacks, and a lot of disappointment. We talk about all that and a lot more coming up on the Locked On Ravens Squad show.
Rise and shine, it's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad show starts now.
What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome to another episode of the Ravens Squad show, post-game edition as the Ravens fall to the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. I'm joined as always with Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Not a great game for the Baltimore Ravens as they fall. Primetime matchup. We always thought that the Ravens would do well in primetime against an NFC foe, no less, but the Ravens do fall to the Detroit Lions 38-30. Lots of things to talk about in this game because this is probably going to set the tone for the rest of the season. Q, you were at the game. I'll start with you, and let's start with the Ravens defense. Very much vaunted. The Ravens were number one in rush defense in 2024. This year, they're ranked dead last after 3 games. What were your thoughts on the game? What did you see out of that defensive unit?
Yeah, I saw just a game where guys who said they were going to come ready to play did not show up. You just saw missed tackle after missed tackle. You saw 2 drives, 196, 198, that a Ravens defense could not stop the Lions offense. The Lions offense did what they want at will. They literally passed it when they wanted to pass it. They ran it when they wanted to run it. They literally screened it when they wanted to screen it. They ran up the middle when they wanted to run up the middle. They ran to the outside when they wanted to run to the outside. They passed it to the outside, to the inside, to the tight end, to the receivers, to the running backs. It just looked like it was a scrimmage out there, the way the Lions were able to execute their offense, and the defense had no answer for what the Lions were doing.
Yeah, it's just so disappointing, especially because, and the stat that I'm going to bring up here, which is just absolutely disgusting, and I feel dirty just reading it, is the fact that the Ravens missed 20 tackles, 20 tackles in this game, according to Next Gen Stats. It's like we're back in 2021.
Yeah.
It's like we're back in 2021 here. Like, it's disappointing, yes, and the injuries certainly play a factor, 1,000%. Like not having Madubuike, not having Van Noy, not having Jaire, but every team deals with injuries. Every team goes through it, right? So you can certainly say that was a factor in this, but we saw the moments where, there were untimely blitzes from Zach Orr. They were playing soft on some certain coverages. Like, it's not just on one particular player, one particular coach. So this was another group effort. But the thing that's the problem is that you just can't generate any pressure on Jared Goff. And then on one of the plays they did generate pressure, Broderick Washington gets up there, and Jared Goff is looking like Lamar Jackson, just sidestepping them and running, I think, for a first down or close to it on that play. Like, they couldn't get anything going. They keyed in on Travis Jones early. It felt like he had that one unreal play where he just tossed an offensive lineman into Jahmyr Gibbs. But they were doubling Travis Jones, taking him out of the game. And when you don't have Madubuike, like, if you double Travis, well, you got to leave Nnamdi one-on-one, and that's a tough assignment. If you double Nnamdi, you leave Travis one-on-one. But these are the moments, and we didn't get an update. John Harbaugh gave us nothing on the status of Nnamdi Madubuike, so we don't know if that's a season-ending thing. Is it he's going to go on IR and come back? Is he going to play next week? Like, we don't know the extent of the injury. But it's even with them, with Madubuike and with Van Noy, still they were having issues generating pressure. And when they were blitzing, it wasn't getting home. When they were rushing with 4, it wasn't getting home. And it just allowed Jared Goff to sit back there in the pocket, throw dicey up, and then the run game really started to get going, later in the game. And Ravens can maybe learn a thing or two with that 2-headed monster in Detroit there, with Gibbs in Montgomery, because outside of Derrick Henry, which we're going to get to, the Ravens, not another running back had a carry. So they utilize their talent the way that they should. And on the Ravens defensive side of the ball, it's a talented group, even with all the injuries, and they couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, there's not a lot of teams in the league with Nnamdi Madubuike, and they're not giving up the type of yards that the Ravens did. So I'm not ready to give that excuse. Yes, having Nnamdi Madubuike would be great for this team. They probably would have had a better chance to win the game. Of course, if you have a Pro Bowl, defensive tackle, you have a better chance to win the game than if you don't. But this is going, it feels like, beyond injury in some aspects. It wasn't just the run defense. It seems like the Ravens were on their heels a bunch with the pass. Maybe it was because they were digging in to stop the run after Jahmyr Gibbs got going. But it just seems as though when they play these upper echelon teams, that this pass defense, again, this dates back to early last season, are continuing to struggle. Marlon Humphrey didn't look great. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin? It looks like this pass defense is going back to their old ways. Marlon Humphrey was clearly frustrated during the game and after the game when talking to reporters. What are your thoughts about this pass defense?
It's not wonderful right now. I thought that they were just finding spots, like especially early in the game. Like Jameson Williams found a couple of early soft spots in the defense. Amon-Ra got free a couple of times. Marlon Humphrey certainly struggled at points in this game, and he was kind of laboring throughout. Like you could tell that he wasn't feeling 100%, especially later in the game. Like he got banged up kind of early, I think. I don't remember exactly when, but he toughed it out, did some agility work on the field at halftime apparently, and that obviously hinders you. But at this point, you kind of have to evaluate where you are as a team, and that's what Humphrey said, is what Hamilton has said. But they're too talented to be a team right now that has given up, tied for the most points given up in the league right now with the Dolphins at 97. Like, you have too many talented players on that roster. All season, all off season, we talked up how good this defense was, how this was the best secondary in the league and the best defense in the league and the best roster in the league. And here they are, just not being able against teams, which, by the way, I hate to break it to you, everybody, but the Ravens are not playing the Browns in the playoffs if they make it there, right?
No,
These are the types of teams. You're going to play the Bills. You're going to play the Lions, the Chiefs. Those are the types of teams you're going to be playing against. And you can't have games like this, because the Browns are a team that, like Joe Flacco, rookie running back in his first game, Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, that's not a playoff caliber offense. This offense in Detroit, that's playoff caliber. The offense in Buffalo, that's playoff caliber. And both the games we have seen the Ravens not be able to execute defensively, particularly in the pass defense area. They obviously gave up a ton of yards to Josh Allen, and then Jared Goff kind of picked him apart when he needed to. So it's definitely a concern.
It's interesting too, because the way the defense talked about how they had a good coaching staff, that they, an addition like Chuck Pagano, it's going to be so much better. And you saw some continuity during the preseason, but the preseason games, you had some moments there, but once the regular season, it just seemed like everything went out the window. And again, you talked about how you got to play against upper tier teams. Yeah, they played well against the Cleveland Browns. Roquan Smith, we hyped him up and we thought that, man, okay, Roquan is back, someone said. But at the same time, when it came down to it, again, tonight, he was non-existent. You can't necessarily, put all of it on Buchanan's shoulders, but again, young player, but you out there. Where were you? Didn't do what you needed to do. That second level has been non-existent. And then you say about Nnamdi, and we get it. We want him to be out there. We want him to, we don't know what's going on with his neck issue and all that, but you got other players, and those other players are professionals that need to step up as well. Where's Broderick Washington? We've said every other name but his name, and I'm looking at the stats here. Like, what are we saying? Like, you're what? 4 tackles, 1 solo, 3 assisted. That's it. That's your stat line. Like, the entire defensive front. So, like, what are we doing? I just think that overall for what we are seeing, Travis Jones, one tackle. You're saying, oh man, you got doubled. Oh, no, but you ain't supposed to be just sitting there relying upon, getting doubled or whatever. Like, what is your job? And if it is your job to occupy space, then who's supposed to be like reaping the benefits of that space that you're occupying? And that's where my frustration lies with this whole entire defensive unit. It's like the back end, they're clearly not covering well enough for the rush to get there, and I for darn sure know that the rush ain't getting there, and the back end is hurting. One hand helps the other, but we are not seeing that. We saw one game, and that was against the Cleveland Browns. And again, they ain't making the playoffs. Let's look at some other teams that are higher caliber teams and go from there.
Yeah, they will have some high caliber teams coming up. Kansas City Chiefs, one of these teams will be 1-3 after next week. You hope it's not the Ravens, but man, that defensive front did not look good for the Ravens. And speaking of the defensive front, you mentioned Travis Jones. This is a contract year for him. Double team is not going to be an excuse. This is a chance for him to show up and show out and show that he's not going to be dependent on anybody BK. And this game wasn't it, especially against an interior offensive line and the Lions that's young. We thought that this would be a good time for these interior linemen to make an impression, and it wasn't the case. And speaking of, making an impression, we had guys, Kavanaugh out, Namdi BK out, Mike Green, a guy who we expected to step up, hasn't shown much, at least in my opinion. So far, Odafe Owe, David Ojabo was given the activation in this game. Didn't see him at all. Q, what are your thoughts about this pass rush unit that has, Jaire Goff didn't get sacked at all in this game, and that's the guy that we knew going in we needed to make uncomfortable. He looked mighty clean at the end of this game.
Like clean. And that's the thing that really was frustrating, because there was an emphasis on being better. There was an emphasis on getting to the quarterback. And, Jared Goff, you knew that he was gettable because he's not that mobile. But heck, even when you thought you had him, he was good enough to get outside the pocket, either throw the ball away or even had a scramble. And so I think the big picture is third down. They are, even fourth down for that matter, because they were 3-3. So you had 10 opportunities, too many. When you're looking at 17 third down / fourth down conversions and they're making 10 of them, like, bruh, that speaks directly to or lack of a pressure and a pass rush. And I know one of our commenters, they were saying how it was 30 pressures on Lamar, but good God, Jaire probably was like, man, this is great. I feel like I'm at practice. Like, there's no pressure whatsoever on me. I'm feeling really good. So mentally, I just think that the identity of this defense, it's either the identity is a bad one, or at some point in time, they're going to find what they need to find and they're going to be better. But regardless, not looking good.
Well, I just feel like we're back 5 years ago, like 3 years ago, where they couldn't generate any pressure without blitzing. And even when they blitzed, they couldn't generate pressure. Like it was a huge issue for them. It felt like they solved it. And again, yes, not having Madubuike and Van Noy hurts you. Like objectively, it just does. They're good players, and not having good players and injuries lower your floor and lower your ceiling. But I'll just kind of reiterate the same point that I did. It's like the talent is too good for you to have games like this at all three levels. And like, no one's sitting here feeling sorry for the Ravens. I know they're not sitting there feeling sorry for themselves. I mean, clearly not. Like Marlon's upset, Hamilton's upset, Lamar was upset the whole game. It felt like something was clearly off or wrong with like whether it was he disagreed with the play calling or he was upset with himself, like whatever it was. Like the vibes were just off. And as I mentioned, like even with Madubuike in there, the pass rush wasn't like particularly great or anything like that. Madubuike was essentially their only pass rusher the first 2 weeks of the season. Guess what? Not Madubuike still was their only pass rush through 3 weeks of the season. He didn't even play in this game. So just state of the pass rush right now. And if guys aren't going to win consistently, it's a huge problem. And we know that Eric DeCosta is not shy about going out there and improving the roster and making moves. Maybe this is a situation where he does, maybe this is a situation where a team starts slow. And, I know Q, we joke about all the time about trades and speculation and the whole
Trade
nine
them
yards.
all. Trade them all. Get rid of them all. Get them all. Redo it. Let's. Hey, right now, if you want to, if hey, I'm EDC, yeah, we're good. Okay, well, go out there and be good and get somebody. Because right now, you can't even rest on your own laurels. This ain't it. This ain't it. John and EDC, all of them, everybody needs to hold themselves accountable. This isn't about being sensitive and like, oh my God, like, but I did it and I don't want you guys to criticize me. Everybody deserves some criticism when we're looking at a 1-2 start and your only victory is against a team that is not playoff caliber. You definitely had the expectations and apparently you had the roster of rosters according to all the pundits and everything. Right now, you definitely have not done what needed to be done to get the job done, and look in the mirror and hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Speaking of holding people accountable, the fans are certainly holding the coaching staff accountable. And it's not going to be pretty if this team falls to 1-3. They have a lot of work to do, and they only have a short amount of time to do it. The Ravens play on Sunday. They played on Monday today. So they're already behind the 8 ball in terms of preparation. We'll touch on what changes may be on the horizon for this team, but when we come back, we'll touch on the offensive line and just overall offense for this team, because it wasn't just the defense that struggled, even though the Ravens put up 30 points. 6 of those were in garbage time. Lamar Jackson did not look himself. He looked flustered out there. Not putting the loss on him, but the supporting cast around him certainly may have let him down. We talk about it next here on the Raven Squad Show. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. Why do you like it? What does it remind me of? It reminds me of the sweet, sweet taste of waking up in the morning and getting that sweet shot of caffeine when I need it the most. And it's going to be one of those things where I use plenty of times, especially in these late night broadcasts on post-game shows. So enough of boring flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorite you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. All right, we're back here with the Raven Squad Show. Post-game edition, Ravens fall to the Detroit Lions 38-30. Again, we are available twice a week, including these post-game shows. You can also catch the Locked On Ravens podcast with Kevin Oestreicher 5 days a week, and other times, depending on the news stories that we have. And a lot of fans are clamoring for those news to come out in regards to this Ravens team. But before we get to that, we have to touch on what the Ravens went through on offense. Now, the Ravens did put up points. Lamar Jackson looked fantastic. The commentators on the show talked about how much, how poised he is in the pocket and how his pass accuracy was up there with the greats. In fact, his passer rating was up there with Aaron Rodgers as of the recording. We don't know especially if he's dropped a little bit. I doubt it based on his performance. But regardless, that offensive line especially struggled mightily. It looked like Aiden Hutchinson had his way with Ronnie Stanley again. Q, you were up at the press box, so you saw the game in a view that most did not. What were your thoughts about the offense here in this game where the Ravens unfortunately fell short?
I think the Ravens offensively, as much as the statistics look like it's like, oh, wow. The one thing that really was interesting, their red zone, when they went down and it was like a back and forth and you thought, okay, cool, Lamar gets it out to Mark Andrews and it looked really cool. They had a nice, cool, creative play with him running the football. And then, of course, Derrick Henry had his big TD run, and that was the 26-yard jaunt into the end zone, or 28 yards, excuse me. And you would have thought, like, all right, cool, you guys are going to do your thing. TJ Tampa, like, mother of pearl. He had a big special teams tackle, and like it's like, all right, great, cool. For the Lions to march all the way down the field and just be like, wow, that to me was crazy. But then for Lamar and company to march back down the field and the stalling into the red zone was what kind of threw me for a loop, because it's to your advantage when you have a Derrick Henry. It's to your advantage when you have Lamar Jackson. It puts the defense on pause. And we didn't see that. The Lions, in my opinion, and I see where our one commenter was saying that, he's a Lions fan, and they, in all their comments, they were having a heart attack as far as what their team was going through. Like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, we expected it to be a shootout. Like, in other words, that there would be some back and forth. I guess in my mind, from a Lions perspective, you should be like, no, we came ready to play defensively and held this potent offense in check. That was Aiden Hutchinson and company, like Muhammad, was all over the field. But they were doing it even as it got into the red zone. Whereas the Lions offense, when they got into the red zone, didn't matter. It was like, they're going to score. And sure enough, they went out there and they scored. It was really something that was appalling, if you will, when you saw how the inefficiencies within the red zone, one. Number two, the running game, like total is 85 yards in total. Like, I'm scratching my head. I mean, these are two gold jacket caliber players in Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And let's not even talk about the fumbling. When it comes down to it, you need to hold on to the football. And Derrick Henry, I think, right now is having a crisis of conscience when you look at what he's been able to do or not do. So, holy wow. Again, there is just this frustration that I have because you're supposed to be this upper tier team and they're just simply not.
I was having James Prochet flashbacks. On that throw. Derrick Henry.
Oh, God.
James Prochet patting the ball, and he's throwing.
Yeah.
And look, I think the disappointing part too is the Lions look heck of a team, 100%. Like, that's a great team, potential Super Bowl matchup, maybe if the Ravens learn how to play some complimentary football. But the Lions also let the Ravens get back into this game and let them do it multiple times. That end of first half management by Dan Campbell was one of the worst sequences I've ever seen to give the Ravens back the ball. They scored at the end of the first half because of that. Then they score again to go up by 7 at the beginning of the third quarter. And then nothing happened after that. Like, nothing. And, again, like, we can talk about Lamar and like, we needed to, like, on some of those plays, he held the ball for long, should have thrown it away, thrown to a check down. But when you 30 pressures, what are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed, like, knowing that stat? And again, like, it looked bad on the live watch, right? Like, everybody saw it happen. Like, Lamar was getting flustered, getting out there. And like, Lamar has won them so many games with hero ball that, like, I've said this for years on Locked On Ravens here. Like, he's won them so many games holding the ball and making something happen. Like, of course, like, he's going to try to make those plays and play hero ball again, because that's just who he is. Lamar plays hero ball better than the rest of them. But you can't work, and Lamar's masked for so many years bad offensive line play. Like, he just has. Like, at points, he's masked that. And while I think that there was a play or two where he definitely could have, hey, just throw it up all the way, live to see another day. Like, what do you want to do with this offensive line that is not protecting you the way that you need to be protected, that they didn't really do a lot with this offseason? Q, we talked about it last week. Like, their plan all along was Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees, and Sam, you and I talked about it in the offseason too. It's like, this is what their plan was. They drafted Emory Jones. Clearly he was not ready, and that's unfortunate, but they wanted these young guards to play, right? They wanted to ride it out and see what happened. And it's not just all on them. I don't want to make it sound like it is. I mean, we saw Roger Rosengarten get beat around the edge a couple times in this game. Like, everybody's to blame here. Charlie Kohler got beat a couple times when he was blocking. Like, it's not just all on that, but the blocking clearly just has not been good enough. And like, there's only so much you can do if you are Lamar Jackson. So like, yes, sure, Lamar could have thrown the ball away. Like, I've said that on a couple of plays. Like, yeah, but he also had a defender in his face like every 2 seconds when the ball was snapped. And at that point, your clock speeds up, and even Lamar Jackson can't be perfect on every single play. So this by no means was on Lamar Jackson, because what can he do in those moments, in those situations? Yeah, sure, guys were probably streaking open over the middle of the field. He found those guys. He made a couple of him and Rashad Bateman were clutch all night. Huge third down conversions. Mark has the 2 touchdowns. And again, a 148.1 passer rating is nothing to scoff at. So I see a narrative being pushed on social media right now that it's Lamar Jackson's fault the Ravens lost this game because all the sacks were his fault because he held the ball for too long. That's ridiculous. Like, we can say Lamar held on the ball for too long at points, but it's ridiculous to say it's his fault, because what are you supposed to do? I just keep coming back to it. What are you supposed to do? I'm not talking 13 pressures. I'm talking 30 pressures. 30. That might be a record. I don't even know if it is or not, but it sounds like it. So you got to step up in those moments if you're the offensive line. The Browns are a great defense, right? They're a great defense. The Lions have great defenders. The Bills have great defenders too. But, at this point, like, do you put Ben Cleveland in the lineup for Falele? Do you go out there and trade for a guy? I mean, offensive linemen are very hard to trade for because everybody needs good offensive linemen. So like, teams aren't really necessarily just, hey, take this really good offensive lineman we have. I mean, I don't know. It's a lot. So, I mean, Sam, what do you think? Are they going to make a trade for an offensive lineman?
I don't know. And I don't think it really helped. I mean, everybody was terrible today. It wasn't Daniel Falele, just him. I mean, Voorhees looked terrible at times as well. But this was a total team collapse for the second straight week. I mean, Ronnie Stanley did not look good today. Aiden Hutchinson took advantage of him a few times as well. Roger Rosengarten has looked bad, throughout the season as well. And some of that is because last season the Ravens used Pat Ricard and Isaiah Likely a lot to help chip, to help defend him against those things. I think in this situation, they will probably be chipping on Stanley's side, but that's why you miss a guy like Pat Ricard. Not to make an excuse, but Pat Ricard masked a lot. He was another lineman out there for this Ravens team, and that will keep a Derrick Henry clean, keep him from getting stripped, fumbled and all of that stuff. So injuries play a part in it, but I don't know if there's an easy fix for this offensive line, and I'm terrified for Lamar Jackson. I mean, you get hit that many times, you're going to get injured. I mean, that's just the way this football game works. I mean, you get hit those amount of times, especially the way he's getting hit, you're risking your quarterback to some big time injuries. So hope the Ravens figure it out. They'll need to, because it's not going to get any easier. Chris Jones is coming to town, and he is going to be another force that they have to deal with. Maybe not as electric as Aiden Hutchinson or Myles Garrett, but he can certainly push this interior back and cause problems for Lamar Jackson as well. So I'm very concerned with this unit, but what can you do in 6 days notice? I know a lot of fans are talking about potentially getting rid of some coaches, and we're going to talk about that next here on this show. We're going to talk about what changes need to be made. Maybe it's a trade. Maybe the Ravens need to go ahead and make some coaching decisions. Maybe it doesn't necessarily entail getting rid of somebody, but maybe changing their philosophy, because something has to change if the Ravens want to make a postseason run to a Super Bowl, which we talked about as early as 2 weeks ago. How time flies and things change. We'll touch on it here next on the Raven Squad Show. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building the same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, we're back here at the Raven Squad Show. Again, we talked about it. The Ravens lose to the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football, much to the chagrin of a lot of Ravens fans, especially here in the comment section. We're seeing you go ahead and pour your hearts out at 1 a.m. So if you're on here, I know you're still upset, can't catch some sleep. Just go ahead and lay it on out and talk about it amongst yourselves, and we're listening to you as the Ravens do indeed fall. Well, we talked about the offense. We talked about the defense. It doesn't seem as though this team is going to be making any strides with indeed trades. I mean, could they trade for Myles Garrett or Trey Hendrickson? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe.
Please.
Crazy things have happened, right? But it just seems as though this team needs to make another, some type of change. And a lot of fans have pointed out Zachary Orr. Now, Zachary Orr, this defense has struggled all season. Changes were made. They brought in Dean Pease. They brought in Chuck Pagano. Seems as though the Ravens are still struggling to get something going. What are your thoughts about Zachary Orr, Kevin, after 3 weeks of football this season, and maybe use the rest of 2024 to make your assessment? But it seems like Zachary Orr is struggling.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been great. Obviously, I think one of the things that made Mike Macdonald so good when he was the Ravens defensive coordinator, and I talked about this on the Instant Reaction show I did just before this, is the adjustment from Wink Martindale to Mike Macdonald. I mean, Wink obviously was just blitz. He lived by the blitz, by the blitz. Mike Macdonald was so calculated in when he sent pressure. He was so calculated in when he played off, when he played press, and you saw the early struggles for Mike. Obviously, that Dolphins game, which we do not talk about here in Baltimore, that was bad. And then he ends up just from there, kind of just the ascension took off from that moment for him. With Zach Orr, it's been a lot more of a grind, and we have to remember too about Zach Orr. The Ravens took a chance here. Zach Orr had no play calling experience heading into his first year as the Ravens defensive coordinator. Now, the difference now is he's had a full year of play calling experience as the Ravens defensive coordinator. So that excuse of he's starting slow because he's getting his feet wet, he's trying to learn the ins and outs. You can't really say that anymore because, I mean, he's had the time, and we've seen a defensive turnaround under Zach Orr. But I think also, and I said this too on the Instant Reaction, and we've talked about it, the three of us on the squad show, sometimes the pressures are untimely or they play off in certain spots. First of all, it's not just on Zach Orr. The players obviously are the ones going out there. I mean, Zach Orr would love to be out there, I'm sure, and kind of get his playing career going. But unfortunately, he's calling the plays. He isn't going out there. So you can't blame him for the execution part of this from the player perspective. But John Harbaugh is the head coach of this team. And you can't tell me that John Harbaugh has no influence and his fingerprints on the offensive game plan and the defensive game plan. So there are meetings about this, and Zach Orr shares his ideas. John Harbaugh shares his ideas. And no, John Harbaugh's not the one calling the plays. But I tend to lean away from just, okay, this is all a Zach Orr problem on the defensive side of the ball, and not say, okay, well, part of it is on John Harbaugh, part of it is on the players, part of it is on Zach Orr. It is a very holistic thing. But what I think the wrong decision is using Zach Orr as a shield for John Harbaugh. I think that is the wrong decision. And to me, it's how many shields does John Harbaugh get? How many lives does John Harbaugh get in these situations when it comes to they've fired Greg Roman, Mike Macdonald's gone, this is a second-year coordinator, and look, maybe it's not the right fit. Who knows? We're 3 weeks into the season. There's a long way to go, right? There's a long way to go. But at this point, what else is there to talk about if the Ravens, and it's an if, not a when. I mean, again, there's still months to go. But if there's another disappointing exit, the defense can't get back on track, I just don't know if they'd fire anyone in season. I mean, maybe they would. But I mean, if it's a disappointing year, I think that we all know that this is probably Super Bowl or bust for John Harbaugh this season, and firing Zach Orr just to lose in the wild card, if that's what happens, is delaying the inevitable. Now, maybe that's the spark the team needs. Maybe Chuck Pagano would come in and, as a veteran, experienced guy, turn the team around. I don't know. But at this point, there are a lot more questions than answers when it comes to the state of this Ravens team, and particularly if Zach Orr is ready or not for a long-term spot as a defensive coordinator, particularly of this team.
I don't see them looking like they don't want to play hard for him. I don't see them looking like they're undisciplined and making just foolish, mistakes and stuff. And I see them executing the defense. They just do it so poorly. And that's where I am scratching my head, because that that's not necessarily just a coordinator thing. You changed out your linebacking coach, you changed out your secondary coach, you bring in a guy in Chuck Smith. We know he's been well talked about. Santucci, the inside linebackers coach. Like, you got guys that apparently were like next level guys that really is going to continue to keep this defense in great standing. And you talk about all the players that are there, but yeah, something ain't right. When Mike Green is dropping back in coverage rather than rushing, that's a problem. When you think your corner blitz is working, but they're gashing you, what are you doing that is a tell that's giving it away? What is it that you're doing when your middle linebacker who was supposed to be all pro and all the world, and when he sits up and plays like it, great, but when he doesn't, it's not good. And he's gone against, in 3 weeks, two of the teams that are more than likely you're going to be seeing in the playoffs. And man, he just didn't get it done. That's the kind of thinking of like, what is going on? What form of witchery is this that we're seeing? Because it's not good football. Regardless, it's just not good football, and that is where the buck stops with John Harbaugh. Okay, John, well, game on. What are you going to do to make this right? Because your team was loaded. Apparently, right now, the only thing they've won is the best roster on paper offseason award. Which, who cares? Like, we're trying to go in season and be the best roster that shows up each and every week, and the record reflects it. Right now, they're dead last in so many categories and middle of the pack in others. It's unacceptable.
It is very unacceptable. And I really don't know where the Ravens go from here. I like your thought processes with this. I think Zachary Orr is a potential scapegoat, but it starts with John Harbaugh. And we talked about it before the season started. We said this is a Super Bowl or bust. And Harbaugh gave us the pretty much shrugged his shoulders. It's not like that. If you don't, if you haven't accomplished anything, you wouldn't understand, yada, yada, yada. Now we're seeing what this looks like. I agree with you guys. I think John Harbaugh is going to be on the hot seat. I think he is on the hot seat. Now, there's no shame in losing to the Detroit Lions. We all know the Lions were in the conference. Well, they weren't in the conference championship, but they were in the division round in the postseason last year. They made the conference championship the year before. They're looking like they're going to be making the headway towards that once again. Losing to the Bills, who were in the conference championship last year. Nothing to, hang your head on. It's the way they're losing that is concerning. They're losing by poor defensive efforts. They're losing because they're not protecting their quarterback, who they paid millions of dollars for. So I agree with you. Do you think that? And the Ravens, they're not shy. They've done this before. In fact, I believe when they won the championship in 2012, they fired their OC, and they made some shifting in the offensive line, and the rest is history with Joe Flacco. So it isn't out of the realm of possibility, but I wonder if they don't go after Zachary Orr, maybe there's a player change. As you mentioned, Eric DaCosta may make a push. John Harbaugh mentioned it in the press conference. They don't have a pass rush. So that sounds to me like they need to get a pass rush. So we'll see what happens. KO, you're the speculation expert. Are there any guys you see potentially that the Ravens could trade for? What's it sounding like to you? Or is it in the house for them?
Man, I don't know if I have any names. I mean, Dexter Lawrence is a name that pops up for a lot of people on the interior. I know Kayvon Thibodeau, also in New York, is another one. But I don't know. I mean, it felt like Clowney was right there. And, he goes to Dallas. So at this point, like, there are probably names. And again, since we're in week 3, some teams don't know that they want to move off of some of their talent yet. We're still early enough in the year to say, oh, hey, we have a shot. Even if we're 0-3, we can win a couple games. But, you start getting into week 6, week 7, you're like 1-7. Yeah, you might want to start getting some draft picks for guys. So then I think we'll kind of establish more names. But the disappointing thing is still, I keep coming back to it, is they're just in the same spot they were in last season. It just took a different path to get there. They're 1-2, needing to dig out of a hole. If you start 1-3, that's a crazy hole you got to dig out of. And that one of these two teams, Chiefs and Ravens, are going to start talking about it 1-3, which is unbelievable. And like, look, the Chiefs offense is playing horribly right now. They are horrible. But you cannot, the last thing you can do is let Patrick Mahomes sit back in that pocket with no pressure and pick you apart, because he will do it. And that offense will tear you apart regardless of who he is throwing to. I don't care if there's no Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce is 35 years old and maybe Worthy plays, maybe he doesn't. You need to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes and force him to make throws, because if you let him have time, he will just dice you apart. So,
they're going to have time. Oh, they will.
Well, and that's if they do, and it's going to be a problem. So they have to figure it out quickly, because the NFL it doesn't wait for you. You gotta step up. And this is a short week too, by the way. Short week for the Ravens, like you talked about. So that also adds a factor of one less day to prepare, one less day to recover, and it's against a team that you've genuinely had trouble with. Although, I guess if there's any saving grace, the Chiefs do look really, really bad right now. So
they look really bad, but they're on the road too, and that's what really concerns me.
Arrowhead's a tough place to play. Yeah,
it's a tough place to play, and I think that overall, offensively, there are some things that you can kind of draw upon and look at. I am concerned that Derrick Henry, 3 games in a row, he's had a fumble, 2 games where he's lost. Technically 3 games he's lost all 3 fumbles. It's just that the Ravens recovered the 1 fumble. At the same time, bigger picture-wise, when you look at what Kansas City is about and how they pretty much contained Saquon Barkley, and their run defense, they're pretty stout. I don't think that they're going to be sitting there, being slouches. This is looking in the hard look mirror. A hard look in the mirror at yourself and seeing whether or not you are capable of rising up to the challenge that you can right this ship.
We'll see if it happens. I am hesitant to totally down this team, because again, we talked about it, 2 great teams that they lost to, but these are the teams you're going to see in the postseason. I mean, the Ravens may go 11-5, 12-5, I should say, new format, 13-4, what have you, and they go in the postseason. They're going to play the Bills again. They're probably going to see the Chiefs again. They're going to see the Chargers, who can run the ball better than, almost as good as the Ravens can, and by the way, have a quarterback who can make any throw possible. So this is a problem that's going to linger. It's not going to be just one and done thing that we've seen oftentimes. I know a lot of people have said, "Oh, the Ravens beat themselves." In certain instances, this is not the case. The Ravens were dominated. The Ravens were beat. And as Q, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, they were beat the way they typically beat teams. They were bullied from start to finish, from opening whistle to the closing moments of the game. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of moves the Ravens make. I would not be surprised if they make some sort of change. Something's going to have to give between now. Maybe they wait till the Kansas City Chiefs game. But as you mentioned, if they don't get pressure on Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs will win. And it will not be a good look for this squad hitting 1-3 with 2 more tough games to go. And this huge stretch that we talked about way back when the schedule was released. We come back, we'll close out the show, talk a little bit more about potential changes and maybe a player or two who we expect to maybe make a return or could make a return that was a healthy scratch in some regards. We'll touch on it here next on the Raven Squad Show. Welcome back to the Raven Squad Show. Again, it is after a tough loss on Monday Night Football. Right now it is Tuesday, 1:24 a.m. in the morning. So I appreciate all of those who are tuning in live, especially Q, who is still at the facility.
Yeah, what a trooper, man.
If
Q,
you guys
you're a
are
trooper.
watching live, oh my gosh, he is still in the press box. Probably the only one there is, I know John Harbaugh's home, but he is still there working his tail off to get us this Ravens content. So much appreciated to Q for sticking it out for us. We got a few more minutes to go. And before we do head out, I want to touch on something that a lot of Ravens fans are talking about before the game even started, and that's a couple of healthy scratches that the Ravens have had, most notably Keaton Mitchell, who the Ravens have said there's just not enough space for him. We talked about it earlier. Derrick Henry was the only one to touch the football. Do you think the Ravens could have used a guy like Keaton Mitchell? Maybe the run lanes weren't there for a guy like Keaton Mitchell, but it seems as though the Ravens could use a little more electricity in an offense. Q, you were at the game, as we can plainly see. Could this team have used somebody the likes of Keaton Mitchell to provide some juice to an offense that kind of struggled a little bit?
I think so. I think this is where you would have a guy that is a change of pace back, a guy that is explosive, a guy that can take it to the house at any given moment. And again, the offense wasn't bad. It just wasn't the greatness that we've been accustomed to seeing. We want to see in the red zone, every single time last year, Derrick Henry got the ball in the red zone, it was like, oh, he scored again. Oh, he scored again. We're not seeing that. When they're out in the open field, and there are times where, you want to be able to really be aggressive and create some explosive plays. Yes, Justice Hill is more than capable of being a strong back, although he and Lamar, I don't know if it was supposed to be a wheel route or a comeback or what, but I know Lamar was ready to sling the ball down the field, and on a third down and manageable, he wound up overthrowing and not being on the same page with Justice Hill. I think that it would be good to see if you can give Keaton Mitchell an opportunity, but that's just not the Ravens' way. They're going to stay status quo. He scored 30. What was it, 30 points? Yeah, they scored 30 points. So in their minds, who are you guys? You outsiders, you.
End of the bar.
Yeah. End of the bar. Hey, end of the bar guy. Give me another drink. It's like, it is interesting how, again, offensively, the blaring thing that I saw was the way the red zone kind of came about. And that is just something that, I hope is just an anomaly, but yeah, this is a team that really needs to look at itself hard in the mirror. Offensive line still staring at itself in the mirror. I think, from a consistency standpoint, the way in which you have to make adjustments. So if you have to make adjustments, is it, purely on Lamar, or is it on T. Martin and the offensive coordinator and Todd Monken being able to come together on the sideline and saying, hey, this is what they're doing. This is why they're doing what they're doing. These are the, adjustments that need to be made. I don't know what adjustments. Clearly they weren't, because the Lions were confusing Lamar enough to get him down on the ground 7 times. And Brian Branch, goodness, should have had an interception.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He, drop. This is a drop. But at the same time, this is not where you would think that, this is, everybody across the board deserves some blame.
Yeah, I think Keaton deserves an opportunity. Like, at this point, yes, Ali had the return. Kicker saved the touchdown. But, we saw what the Lions did with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, that 1-2 punch. It keeps guys fresh. And again, like, the Ravens didn't necessarily run the ball like 30 times tonight. Like, it just wasn't there. It wasn't the game plan, wasn't the game flow, whatever. But Keaton's a talented player, and like, he didn't do anything to not deserve to get snaps. And that's, I think, what bothers me the most about it, where, like, yes, special teams is really important. I get Harbaugh's a special teams guy, but something has to change in some of these moments, especially when, like, you have the ability to capture more momentum back and you just need a spark. And it seems like they're trying to, like, double up at times Zay Flowers as Keaton Mitchell. It didn't really show in this game. Like, they didn't really run a lot of that stuff with Zay, but it feels like they can get Keaton's production out of Zay, when in reality, there is nobody like Keaton on that roster. Like, Keaton just provides you so much. And I think even with Justice, like, I think they should give Justice more opportunity. I know there was the miscommunication with him and Lamar on the throw on third down, and Lamar was upset about that. But, like, I just feel like I'm fine with Keaton as a returner and having someone else play Ali's role on special teams elsewhere, because I think Keaton gives you that much more on the offensive side of the ball. So at this point, like, Keaton's not going to go out there and rush the passer for you. He's not going to cover a receiver for you. Like, obviously, there are more pressing issues than Keaton right now, but I think that they are actively sidelining someone that can give them an advantage. There's actually a play of Keaton in 2023 against the Lions of cool play design where Keaton, I'm gonna post that either tonight or tomorrow morning, and I'm sure that'll get
You're gonna get bombarded, sir.
I'm just saying.
He's ready to poke the bear.
You two can be two of the people that bombard me. How about that? But I'm just telling you that Keaton, I think, can give them a spark. And sometimes, even when the offense is humming and they're putting up 40, they're putting up 30 a game. But even it's just situationally, they're going to need something like that throughout this season. And I think Keaton's the obvious choice. So I think it's the wrong decision, but clearly they're valuing the special teams ability over the offensive ability because they feel like they have enough. But, situationally, sometimes it's tough.
Another comment was saying how on those sacks, it was Lamar not getting rid of the football. And I think that is something where, from an adjustment aspect of things, Monken certainly didn't, help. And, it needs to be said how in the flow of the offense, there really wasn't an outlet for him to get rid of the ball. And I think, sometimes when Lamar is like, all right, you know what? I can bully ball. Well, not bully ball this, but I am Lamar Jackson. I can do this. I can get the ball out and I can hold on to it for an extra heartbeat. But like there were no just good, strong passing lanes once they went into that zone coverage look. When they got out of man, that's when the Ravens struggled. Man to man, they were slicing and dicing up this defense. But when they went to zone, the Lions had their way.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because Todd Monken has kind of escaped some criticism because of the way the Ravens have put up points. But I think the points are masking how poorly, in certain situations, especially in the red zone, this game has been called. I know a lot of what the Ravens are able to do points-wise is on the back of Lamar Jackson. That's why you see sometimes Lamar Jackson hold on to the ball, and he does create magic. We've seen it for years with him. But, man, when you get down to the 1-yard line, I mean, the play calling that we saw from Todd Monken, you're one of the teams that voted for the tush push. You've ran it certainly this season, and for whatever reason, you decide not to run a tush push. You get stopped on first down and second down running the football, and it just seems like he's overthinking things, overanalyzing things, especially with the hungry defense like the Detroit Lions. Am I overthinking the Todd Monken thing? I know putting up 40-plus points 2 weeks in a row, then 30 points here, maybe a touchdown in garbage time. But still, this is an offense that is humming. But, man, Todd Monken in the red zone sometimes, I scratch my head with his play calling. Q, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just think that, there's times where they wanted to be aggressive and the defense for the Lions, they were stout at the point of attack. There were no real strong, hey, we're going to be able to get Derrick Henry into that little bit of a crease, and then now his momentum can get him into the end zone. It wasn't that. We didn't see that at all. What we did see is that there was a lot of penetration. When Lamar Jackson did try to throw it, it just seemed like the Lions were ready. I know they went up to the line to kind of quick snap it, but it just seemed like the Lions were ready and the Ravens didn't have a counterpunch. The one score that was in the red zone, I do appreciate and like the way they gave the little fake handoff, rolled one way, and then threw it back to Bateman for the score. So, yeah, I like that one. I like the one, not necessarily it was deep into the red zone, but I do like the throw that Lamar had to Mark Andrews for a score. So there were some good things, but overall, that defensive front was having their way. Aiden Hutchinson, my God, man, like he was a real deal. He caused havoc, and he was the one that had the fumble or forced the fumble on Derrick Henry, and that was a pivotal as turning point of a game as it ever was. To be able to retrace your steps and kind of boom, just punch the ball out and surprise the running capabilities of a Derrick Henry was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Monken, he does get too cute, and that's honestly, it goes back to his tenure. Like he has moments like that where he will outsmart the best defensive coordinators in the league one game, and then the next game he'll just get super cute. And the thing with Monken is sometimes the offense starts super slow and then comes to life late. Sometimes the offense starts super fast, then kind of dies off as the game goes on, and you don't really have that momentum. And it's even not utilizing your best play. Like, for example, it's not this game, but last year we saw multiple plays where deep in enemy territory, in the red zone, by the goal line, Derrick Henry's getting like motioned out wide on 2-point conversions, and like you're not utilizing him as a fake guy and as a decoy even. And that to me is just like, situational awareness there for Todd Monken is important, because you want to keep the defense. We saw multiple plays in this game, especially early on, where the Lions were selling out to stop Derrick Henry because Derrick Henry had a big run. And they used play action well off of that. Throws the Andrews, throws the Bateman. It worked. But it feels like they go away from it and almost like over adjustments, where it felt like Dan Campbell adjusted, and that offense, the Lions offense and defense, they adjusted throughout the game, and they did it pretty well. It felt like the Ravens were trying to overcompensate for that at points, especially as the game kind of turned into what it was later in the contest. And it's just disappointing, because we know how good this offense can be. Yes, they're missing Isaiah Likely. Yes, they're missing Patrick Ricard. Those are two big losses. But, it's almost like he orchestrates this beautiful drive for like 85 yards. And then the last 5 yards were like, what is this? Like, what are you doing? And that to me is just, it's the give and the take, I guess. But if you want to be a serious, competitive Super Bowl contending team, you can't have that. I mean, we saw the Lions execute 2 flawless 95 plus yard touchdown drives. It took up a ton of time. And, the Ravens aren't in the Greg Roman days where they're going to take up like 14 minutes on the clock anymore. They do it pretty efficiently when they do drive down the field that way. But look, it's hard to score in the NFL. It's hard to put up points in the NFL. It's hard to play football. I'm not expecting this team to like score on every offensive possession. There are going to be punts. There are going to be 3 and outs. There are going to be mistakes. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm just asking for consistency. I think that's what everybody wants here.
It is going to be a very tough road to Kansas City. Lots of questions that need to be answered. Unfortunately, it appears as though the Achilles heel of his team is the offensive and defensive line, and that is something that will not get fixed overnight. So it is going to be something that Ravens fans are going to have to pay attention to. You can fire Harbaugh, you can fire Orr, but until these guys get together, gel together, and get things going, it's going to be tough sledding in these type of atmospheres and these type of games. You mentioned the Chiefs. The Chiefs are coming up next. The Chiefs aren't good. I mean, we could talk about how many championships they won. Patrick Mahomes is a QB, but they're not good. They do have Pat Mahomes, and he is good enough to beat you by himself. We've seen Lamar Jackson do it. There's no reason why Pat Mahomes can't do it. If you do not get pressure on him, we are going to be right back here, post-game show, long faces, talking about what went wrong. Hopefully, things turn around and we're just being a little anti because the Ravens just lost a big game on primetime television. But I do appreciate everybody for tuning in, coming out. Again, appreciate Q Kadri for coming on the show. It is 1:38 p.m. on the dot, a.m. on the dot. Before the show started, we said 1:38. He is going to be out of here. It is 1:38, so we're going to close out the show. I appreciate you guys for joining us. Q's already out of there, so he's ready to go. He ain't playing around. Appreciate, again, everyone else who tuned in. We're going to be back here on Wednesday talking Ravens Chiefs. So might be a lot to talk about considering some news that may be coming out shortly, I'm sure, regarding this team. We'll talk about it ad nauseum for that hour. But again, appreciate you guys for joining us. For myself, KO, and Q, who is no longer here. I appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Raven Squad show, and we will see you on Wednesday.